All right, thanks for showing up. Let's learn how to factor x squared plus bx plus c. Stop. Didn't we just do that last week? Yes, we did. There's a small difference in these two problems. Very small difference. Do you see it? Look carefully. There's a number in front of x squared. So the difference this week is now we have to factor something with a at the front, a coefficient in the first term. So now that we have a number here and a number here, things are slightly different. We have a few more steps that we have to go through, but pay close attention and you should be able to do it at the end of this video. Step one, and I am going to write step one out because it's a new step. Step one is multiply A times C. That's how you start these. Multiply your A value times your C value. So just take 4, multiply it by 3, and then list that number out off to the side. So 4 times 3 gives me a 12. That's how you're going to start this out. Now we're going to go through the same exact process as we did last week, where we're going to list out our factors of 12. So last week all you did is you just stole the C value, and then you listed out the factors. Now we need to multiply these together and list out the factors. Not a big difference. Okay, so I'm going to have 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. That's all my factors of 12. It's important that one of these adds together now to make my middle term, my 7. So which of these, 1 plus 12, 2 plus 6, or 3 plus 4, will add together to make 7? And you guessed it, if I were to add 3 and 4 together, I get a 7. So now what I need to do is I want to take that 3 and that 4, and that's how I want to write out my middle term. Instead of saying 7x, we need to take this trinomial and turn it into a polynomial with 4 different terms. So what that's going to look like is this. Instead of writing 7x, I'm going to say 3x plus 4x. And if you think about that, same thing, right? 3x plus 4x is 7x. It's just not simplified. So now all I need to do is just bring these terms down, plus 3 plus 4x squared. And what I've done is I've written out now a 4-termed polynomial. This is important because on these types of problems, we need to learn how to factor by grouping. Okay, now factoring by grouping means we're going to group these 2 terms as one binomial and these 2 terms as the other binomial. You're grouping them in their own pieces. So this group right here and this group right here, you're always going to make 2 binomials. Now it's important that you learn the skill of finding the GCF, the greatest common factor of a binomial. So I want to say, what is my GCF of 4x squared plus 3x? 4 and 3 do not have a common factor other than 1, really. So I have an x squared here and an x. Both of these terms they both are common in the sense that they both have at least one x. So I'm going to pull an x out. And I'm going to say x times what, if I were to distribute it, would make this binomial. Well, x times 4x would make 4x squared. And x times a 3 would make a 3x. Again, I now need to find my greatest common factor and pull that out of this binomial. 4x plus 3. 4x, they both don't have an x. The first term does, the second term does not. So I can't pull an x out. What do 4 and 3 really have in common other than 1? There isn't anything. So what I do want to pull out here is a 1. 1 times what would make 4x plus 3? 1 times 4x plus 3. This is like a magic trick in math. It's awesome. It's where the math tells you like, hey, keep going. You're doing great. They're saying life is good. You've done everything right if you have twins. So I call them twins. Why? Because they're exactly the same. This binomial and this binomial match. If that happens, you should feel good and you should move forward because you've done everything right up until this point. How do I finish this problem out? Write down one of the twins as one of the binomials. 4x plus 3. Does it matter which one? No, it doesn't. They're the exact same. So where does my second binomial come from when factoring this all out? This binomial needs to come from your GCFs. Let me list that out in green. Your GCFs were x for this binomial and 1 for this binomial. So your second binomial needs to be x plus 1. We are done. If I were to use the FOIL method on these two binomials and multiply them together, I would end up getting my original trinomial. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's move on to the second one. Second one, I have 3x squared plus 16x plus 5. Step 1, multiply 3 and 5 together, which gives me a 15. List out my factors of 15. That's 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. Hopefully one of these will add together to make my middle term of 16, and that pops up right away. 1 plus 15, if added together, makes 16. This is what we're using. Ignore those. I want to write 16x down as two terms. 1x plus 15x. Bring the ends down. And when I say the ends, I'm really just talking my a term and my c term. Group them. Boom, boom. You're always going to group them as binomials. Find the GCF of each one. Okay, so I'm going to write this line down the middle just to separate these two problems so you know where the separation is. What is my greatest common factor of 3x squared and 1x? They both have an x. 3 and 1, greatest common factor is really just a 1. So what I'm going to pull out is an x. X times what would make this if I were to distribute it? And that would be a 3x and a 1. Remember, I'm hoping to get 3x plus 1 on my second set of parentheses, so I have twins. If I do, I know I'm doing things correctly. 15x plus 5. What are 15 and 5 both divisible by? 5. And I don't pull out an x because this term doesn't have one. 5 times what would make 15x plus 5? That's going to be 3x. And 5 times what makes 5? 1. Ooh, yes. I'm happy because I have twins. How do I finish this out? How do I give my answer? I have two parentheses, two sets of parentheses as an answer with a binomial here and a binomial here. Where do the binomials come from? One of them is your twins. Does it matter which one? No, they're the same, silly. And then where do I get my second binomial from? The GCFs, x and positive 5. Again, if you were to multiply all this out, you would get the end result of 3x squared plus 16x plus 5. This is factoring when we have a coefficient in the first term. Hopefully that makes sense. Study hard and good luck on your upcoming test.